Good morning, everybody. Welcome to PSG of Mercer County. The professional service group of Mercer County is here for you. Anybody that is in any kind of career transition. Doesn't really matter why. Certainly there's been stresses in the job market lately, so some companies had to make their own decisions. You may also be at a point where you are coming back to the job market due to something you needed to take care of personally, or maybe it's just time for you to make your own change in your career. Doesn't really matter. We're here to provide resources and information, a little bit of support to help make your job search a little bit easier and more effective. And want to wish everyone a happy Aloha Friday, as we do every Friday. If you're visiting us for the first time, no, your screen is not blurry. I am indeed wearing my Hawaiian shirt, as I do every Friday to celebrate Aloha Friday. I was kind of looking online, and everyone knows the internet is 100% truthful, but this story I think is true. 70 years ago today, so October 2nd, 1950, the comic strip Peanuts by Charles Schulz made its first appearance in newspapers. So Charlie Brown and the Peanuts gang, I guess they're all 70 years old. They look good for 70, although Charlie Brown has been bald his whole life. I don't know if that's a sign of anything good or bad, but so happy anniversary, Peanuts. The PSG group does have resources that we make available to you, all of our members, and some of them are even available to people who are not yet members of our group or who have not yet visited us. For instance, our website. Our website is on the internet. It's for everybody. Our website has over 120 pages of content. psgofmercercounty.org. psgofmercercounty.org. There's all sorts of information from getting started in a job search, maybe rebooting or giving your job search a little bit of a kickstart, or some sort of shift. If you're thinking instead of being a full-time permanent employee, you're going to be a consultant, or you're going to buy a business like a franchise or start your own business. We are not the be-all and end-all of those topics, but we just have a lot of information through our website to help you get started in learning about each of those different career paths. But if you're still looking for a full-time opportunity, or if you're looking for a contract opportunity and you need a place to find a list of companies, we have a job boards page. And it's right in the center on the menu item, the job boards page. And it's really limited to Mercer County, which is where Princeton is, and the 6 surrounding counties. And so those 7 counties are all represented in our job boards page. It's a great set of pages to do a targeted company list. Build your own list if this is the area that you're interested in working. Because what we do is when you open up that page, you pick the county of interest. So you can do one county at a time, go to Mercer or any of the 6 border counties. And then that county page opens and you'll see a list of 12 different subcategories like education, not-for-profit, and others. And then once you click that in each of the pages, you'll get a list of companies in that sector, in that county. Now, when you click on those company links, what you'll get is actually right to their own career page. So we're not maintaining the list of jobs, we're maintaining the list of career pages. But also, at the very least, you may be surprised at finding out how many companies are actually in this geographic area. So we have over 2,600 company career page links in our 7 pages. So go take or 7 county pages, go take a look at that. And that's available to anybody. If there's somebody you know who's in a job search, you can just let them know, go there, psgofmercercounty.org, and then go look at our job search pages. They can make a targeted company list. Also, we have our LinkedIn group, and our LinkedIn group is, it's a little bit of a private group. It's available for anybody to find. It is called PSG of Mercer County. So just look for the group in LinkedIn. And if you're not yet a member of group, the join button or join group button will be on that page, and click that button. You will immediately be placed in a pending status. So we don't make or allow for membership to be completely automatic. What I'll do is I'll go through our own records, our own attendance records, and have a check to make sure that whoever makes a request has been to at least one of our meetings. What I'm trying to do is screen out the list collectors, the people just going through LinkedIn, looking for groups to join because they're looking to collect names or target just large groups of people. We want to kind of insulate ourselves from that. But we're over 1,600 members strong right now. They're all people that have been through attended one of our meetings, so that works out nicely. And what that means is when you reach out to anybody in the group, and you can reach out to anybody in our group in LinkedIn, even though you're not a first degree connection yet. But when you do, there's a good chance they'll respond to you because they understand job search. They've been through it. So if you ask a very reasonable question about the industry or the company they're in or anything else of relevance, I'm sure you'll get a response back. So let us go through our ground rules just for the meeting. As you just learned the lesson, please keep your microphones on mute, just trying to minimize any accidental background noise. In a moment, I'll turn the presentation over to Stan. He'll of course have his microphone on, and I'll be keeping an eye on it. If I hear any noise, I will turn those off as well. So just ask, please keep your microphones on mute during the presentation. I will introduce Stan in just a moment. He now has access to present, which his screen, which he's about to do. In Stan's presentation, what we'll ask you to do is any questions that you have, because this group may get quite big, any questions that you have, just put them in chat. In the upper right corner of your screen are a couple of icons. One looks like a couple of people, looks like it's got the number 53 next to it. That's all our participants. The one next to it is a little call out, like a cartoon comic call out. That's chat. Click on that. Right sidebar will open, and you can type your message in chat. And so what I ask is type your message. If you have a question, type it to everyone. And the reason why is not really sure if you type it to everyone, both Stan and I have the opportunity to see it. If you send it to just one of us, well, one of us will see it, but it gives more eyes the opportunity to see your question. And then before typing a question, write the word question right in front of it. So it's question, what are some ways of being different, or whatever your question may be. We're going to actually save all the questions to the end. So that's the presentation style that Stan prefers. So, but when you have a question, even if it's on slide 2 or 3 or 4, doesn't really matter. Write your question. We will be happy to go back and answer the questions. So as your questions come up, type it in chat, write the word question ahead of it, and we will address your question then. Okay. As for keeping your cameras on and off, that's your choice. If you want to keep your cameras on, you're welcome to. If you prefer to keep your camera off during the presentation, that's fine as well. So that's pretty much it, and I think we are ready to get started with Stan's presentation. So PSG of Mercer County is very pleased this morning to welcome leadership coach and consultant Stan Silverman. As a former CEO and recognized thought leader and influencer, Stan is a widely read, nationally syndicated columnist with the Philadelphia Business Journal on leadership, and the author of Be Different, The Key to Business and Career Success. He speaks and writes on how to build competitive advantage for your business and yourself as you advance your career. His mission? To help others be successful. So PSG of Mercer County is very pleased to welcome this morning Stan Silverman.
Well, thank you, David, and thanks for inviting me to appear this morning. And I'd like to thank everybody in the audience for joining us this morning. So I'm going to give you some background on myself before we dig into the slides. As David mentioned, I'm a former CEO of a company it was a global company operating in 19 countries. I rose through the company through 11 positions, finally achieving the position of CEO. And when the company was sold back 15 years ago, I entered my second career, which was to serve on a number of boards. So I've been on 2 public company boards, private equity, trade association boards, nonprofit boards. And I gained a lot of insight and experience just watching other CEOs operate and how their staffs operate. And I write about that in my weekly column. And so about 6 years ago, I started my third career, which was to start writing for the Philadelphia Business Journal. I write on leadership, entrepreneurship, and corporate governance. And about 3 years ago, they promoted me to national syndication. So I appear once a month in 43 of the Philadelphia Business Journal's sister publications across the country. And then I was fortunate enough to start my fourth career, which was to write a book called Be Different, The Key to Business and Career Success. It's based upon many of my articles that I've written for the Business Journal, but also my observations as I sit on my current slate of boards, which total 6. One private equity board. I'm the vice chairman of Drexel University, and I'm on the board of St. Christopher's Hospital, which is jointly owned by Drexel and Tower Health. And I serve on 3 K through 12 private schools. So I'm still very active in my board service. So when David asked me to appear today, we spoke about what the needs are of the audience. And many of you are mid-career, you're searching for your next job, or perhaps you're thinking about searching for your next job. And David asked me to talk about how you might be different than your peers. And so the key to life, really, in both business and whether it's personal or for your business, is to be different than your peers. So every company needs to be different than their peers so that people in their marketplace preferentially buy from them versus their competition. So how can companies be different? I call that the holy grail of every business. Every business wants to achieve the position of being the major player in their market, where customers and clients in that market buy from them and not the competition. But for all of us individually, we need to be different than our peers to get that next job, both either internally for a promotion or externally when we go searching for a new job. So let's talk about that. And so what do for-profit and nonprofit organizations look for when they hire people? Well, they look for people that will help them achieve their mission. They look for people that will excel at their job and achieve results. They look for people who are positive, will be a positive addition to their organization, that will help the organization become the preferred provider to its marketplace, are committed to continuous improvement, and also have a sense of ownership in what they do. So let's talk about the last one. And so I learned this as the president of my company's Canadian subsidiary in Toronto, Canada. We had a production unit that produced a product for the refractory industry, and the unit was sold out. It was very profitable, but we were running above capacity. We're running all kinds of overtime on the production unit, and we hadn't put any capital into the unit for many, many years. And it was time to invest and expand capacity to meet future demand. So our marketing people figured that we would need a 50% increase in capacity to satisfy demand over the next 4 to 5 years. So rather than call in the corporate engineers to do the job, we decided we would take a different approach. This was a very small unit, and I'm thinking that we could probably expand this unit for $500,000, and the corporate engineers really only work on things that are multi-million-dollar projects. And so we asked the operator of the unit, Luigi Paolini, what he thought we would need to do to expand the unit. And so he looks me in the eye and he said, nobody's ever asked me that. I know exactly how we should expand this unit, but nobody's ever asked me. So my plant manager and I are looking at him incredulously, thinking, Luigi, how would you do it? He said, well, I'll tell you how we should do it, but I need help. I'd like to have the help of a plant mechanic to help me decide and scope out how we expand this unit. So very cavalierly, we said, okay, pick your man. And he says, I picked Don McNeil, who happened to be the very best mechanic in the plant. However, he was absolutely the worst person with respect to labor management relationships, always wanting to file grievances, always wanting to go on strike when things didn't go his way. Never really voted for a contract. Usually was probably one of the only people in the plant that voted against every contract that came up. So I'm thinking this is going to be a huge disaster, but he's picked Don McNeil and we're not going to go back on our word. And so we said, okay, why don't you talk with Don tomorrow, and we'll talk with him in the afternoon, and we'll see if he'll help you figure out what the scope should be to expand the unit. And so we saw Don McNeil that afternoon, the next afternoon, and Don says, Luigi, talk to me about what you want to do. And I'm going to do this, but let me tell you, I'm going to do it only because I'm helping my friend Luigi. I'm not helping you. I don't care about you. I'm only doing it for Luigi. So we said, okay, well, help Luigi. And 4 weeks later, they march into my office, and my plant manager and I are sitting there, and they present the scope of the expansion. Very, very innovative and creative, something I would have never thought about. And Don McNeil did something else that we didn't ask him to do. He cost estimated what the project would cost at $260,000, and I'm thinking 500. And you would ask, well, how would a mechanic know how much something would cost? Well, he deals with outside contractors all the time, so he kind of knows what things cost. And so we give them the green light. Okay, guys, you're now in charge of managing and overseeing the expansion, which they did. So 2 months later, the unit starts up, the expanded unit starts up. Within 7 days, they are at the 50% increase in capacity criteria we gave them. Within 14 days, they're at 62% increase in capacity, and the plant is just humming along, just working perfectly. The product is almost completely in spec every batch, which was an improvement. It's less work for Luigi because they put in some automation. And it was just a shining example of what happens when you put 2 hourly people to work on a project. And so all 4 of us fundamentally changed by going through this project. Don McNeil is now walking through the plant telling his union brother, management trusted me for what I could do with my mind in addition to what I could do with my hands. They're pretty good guys. And so he completely changed. And now, instead of being a negative opinion leader within the manufacturing plant, he's now a positive opinion leader. Luigi changed in this way. I'm taking a visitor through the entire plant, which has 6 production units. Luigi has one of them. And we stop at his production unit. And Luigi says, I'll give the visitor a tour through my production units. You don't have to do that, Stan. I said, okay. And so he gives the visitor a tour. And the next day, Luigi stops me and says, do you know why I did what I did yesterday? I said, what'd you do? He says, I gave the visitor the tour. I said, why'd you do that? He said, I did it because this is my plant, not yours. This is my production unit. This is my production unit, not yours. And I'm thinking, oh my God, we created a sense of ownership in Luigi for what he does. And from that point on, everything just went completely positive. Every month, things would get better, production would get better. The materials that we made were completely on spec. And I'm thinking we need to create a sense of ownership in the employees that we have working in all of our various aspects of our business to really improve. And that gets to the one above it, which is continuous improvement. Employers want to hire people that are committed to continuous improvement. So from that point on, for the rest of my career, my focus has been on helping people create a sense of ownership in what they do within the company. And the results were absolutely spectacular around the world. We made millions and millions of dollars in terms of cost savings and in growing our markets, and which was money that we plowed back into the business, which was money we put on the profit sharing plan for our employees. And it really helped improve our competitive situation. So my lesson and advice to all of you sitting in this room is when you go through a job interview, you want to talk about how you would like and how you create a sense of ownership in what your employees do, because I guarantee nobody else will talk about that who is interviewing for that job. Absolutely nobody. And you want to talk about continuous improvement because nobody else will talk about that. So let's talk about your value proposition. And employers want to ask, what can you do for me? I mean, that's kind of a reasonable thing to ask. They want to know what job candidates are going to do for them. What are they going to do for their company? How can they help the organization achieve its mission and be successful? So your resume and your interview should reflect your focus on the customer or client. I always say that great companies give their customers or clients a great customer or client experience. And even if you work for a staff unit within the company and you're not dealing with customers, your clients are the other units within the company. So if you're HR, you're giving service to the other units throughout the company. If you're in accounting, you're giving service to other units within the company. So you need to help them be successful. You want to help them be successful. And there's a lot written about this. And I can give you many, many examples. My own personal example of how I only deal now with companies and firms that give me a great experience. And I don't deal with people that do not do that. So you want to talk about in your interviews how you're focused on your customer or the client, whether it's external or internal, and how you're going to help them be successful. I can guarantee no other job candidate is going to talk about that. You also want to share your track record of results in your previous positions. What have you accomplished? How did you accomplish that? And so you want to talk about that as you interview for your jobs, your next job. You also want to demonstrate that you're effective at selling your ideas.
Is there something else I can help with?
I don't know why that happened. Sorry about that. So regardless of our position, we are all selling to our bosses, to our direct reports, to our peers. You don't have to be in the sales department to sell. They're not the only people that sell. You're always selling. You're always selling your ideas because you want people to adopt what you suggest and what you want to do. So you have to be very effective at selling your ideas, which means you need to be a good listener and a good communicator. And that will help you sell your ideas. Plus, it'll get those people to listen to you because you're listening to them. So let me give you an example. When I was chief operating officer of my company, I would go to the CEO and say, Dick, I think we ought to do X, Y, and Z on this issue. Well, before I got two sentences out of my mouth, he would say, it doesn't work. We tried that. It doesn't work. We tried that. So I got tired of basically being shut down after two sentences. So I started writing him memos. I wrote him a page-and-a-half memo, and he'd have to read it because I wasn't in the room. He'd come in and say, well, this is a pretty good idea. Let's get it done. And so that's how I got around his refusal, really, to let me get the entire idea onto the table. And when I became CEO, he did this with everybody. When I became CEO, I decided that we were going to change that cultural norm. And so this is what I did. Normally, I would wait for a subordinate or somebody reporting to me to give me their opinion on an idea or an issue we were talking about. But sometimes I would say, well, I think we should go direction A on this one issue. I would expect my CFO, for example, to say, no, I don't think so, Stan. I think we should go direction B. The way I respond to my CFO will forever, ever really govern our interchange between us. I could blow him off, which was really, it would be a dead thing to do. It would be a deadly thing to do. Or I would say, Bill, why do you think we should go direction B on an issue? And Bill would say, well, this is the reasons why. And we would debate the issue, A versus B, for an hour, for a day. We bring in outside experts for a week, however long it took. One of three results would occur because of that interchange. I would sustain A, and I would thank Bill for suggesting B because we beat A with B and B versus A, and A turned out, in my mind, to be the best alternative. Or I would say, Bill, B is really a good idea. It's better than A. Thank you for recommending it. And Bill would feel really good because he changed the CEO's mind. But more often than not, more than 50% of the time, we would find direction C better than A and B because we debated A and B. And I got to tell you, we never made a mistake. Well, I should say we almost never made a mistake. Over the 5 years I was CEO, we drove earnings from $14 million to $43 million. And one of the reasons is because we freely debated ideas as equals, and we let the best idea win. And that was just a huge amount of the reason why we drove earnings from $14 to $43 million over the 5 years that I was the CEO. So you want to be very good at selling your ideas, but you also want to be a good listener, and you want to talk about your style when you interview for a job, and you want to bring this up. You want to demonstrate that you're not afraid to get out of your comfort zone, and you want to push through self-perceived limitations. So not only do you want to demonstrate this, but you also want to talk about in the interview how you've helped the people reporting to you get out of their comfort zone. And I have a great example of this. And so as a 32-year-old business manager at my company, one of our products was anhydrous sodium metasilicate, which is a chemical that goes into laundry, commercial cleaning products, but let's call it ASM. And so Rhone-Poulenc, which at the time was a very large French producer of ASM, was dumping their product into our United States market, home market, at a price below the home market at a price in France, which is the definition of dumping. And they were taking a lot of customers from us and the other suppliers within our industry within the United States. So I went to our CEO. I said, Paul, I think we should sue Rhone-Poulenc for dumping ASM in the United States. So we met with our general counsel, internal general counsel. We talked about it, and Paul said, okay, go at it. Ernie, which was our general counsel's name, find a lawyer, outside lawyer for these guys, and let them go at it. And so Ernie found us an attorney who was not a Wall Street, New York type attorney that you would expect to sue for an international violation of trade, but really a local Philadelphia guy who knew a lot about this, but was kind of a rough and tumble guy. And he says to my product manager and I am not going to run this case. You're going to run the case, and I'm going to give you advice and guide you on how to run the case. And we were absolutely, we were just absolutely shocked. We had never done this before. This would be so far out our comfort zone. We weren't really sure we wanted to do this. He says, hey, you'll be just fine. I'm going to give you guidance. And the reason I'm doing it is when you go up in front of the Court of International Trade in Washington, D.C., there's 5 commissioners. It's going to be in a room exactly like the Supreme Court chamber. It's going to be somewhat intimidating, but don't worry about it. And the 5 commissioners will give you and your product manager much more leeway of violating court procedure than they will for an attorney, because you're not an attorney. You're a bunch of guys trying to defend your marketplace. And so they're going to be really nice to you versus if I were to present this case, they would hold me accountable for every possible violation that I might or the other side might make in terms of court procedure. So we said, okay. And so for months and months, we prepared this case. We got to the day when we went to Washington, D.C., went in front of the court. And believe me, it was just like the Supreme Court chamber. And instead of 9 justices, there's 5 commissioners. Extremely intimidating, but we were very, very, very prepared. And we ran the case. And the result was that they found for our company with a 5-0 vote, and they imposed the highest dumping duty on Rhone-Poulenc for ASM, the highest duty on any chemical ever imported into the United States. And so we found like we won the Olympics. We felt like we won the Olympics. And to us, we actually did. So what did we learn? We got out of our comfort zone. We knew how to do that. We could do it. And we learned we could do something that was so far out of the realm of possibility that we would ever think about. We accomplished a tremendous amount by winning this case. Well, that gave us confidence to do a bunch of other things. And here, we're basically, 32-year-old kids doing this stuff, right? And so you always want to get outside your comfort zone because it'll help you, and you always want to get your people outside of your comfort zone. So if you've ever had an experience where you've gotten out of your comfort zone or you helped one of your employees, one of your direct reports get out of their comfort zone, talk about it at the interview. I can guarantee nobody else is going to do that. Nobody else is going to do that. So what I just talked about are really not soft skills, they're power skills. They are power skills. They're just as important as technical skills for personal success. And so I do a lot of writing about emotional intelligence. And there's a professor at the university, I think it's Rutgers University, that once wrote that, technical skills are really the skills that get you in the door, but they don't help you climb the ladder unless you also have a lot of emotional intelligence, which revolve around the power skills that we're talking about today. And so these are some of the things that you need to keep in mind as you get your next position and as you start moving up the ladder in that next position. These are very important skills. They're called power skills. You also want to build your personal brand to differentiate yourself. So how do you do that? Well, all of your experts within your area, technical experts within your area. And so you really want to become a recognized expert and a leader within your industry. So you want to get your name out. So how do you do that? Well, LinkedIn is a very easy way to do it. When I first started writing on leadership, I wrote on LinkedIn. This was before I even thought about approaching the Philadelphia Business Journal for a writing position, a columnist position. And so I wrote 15 articles on LinkedIn about leadership. And I approached the editor-in-chief and the publisher of the Philadelphia Business Journal. And I told him who I was, what my background was. And I said, I've written 15 articles on LinkedIn. Would you like to read them? And I think they were looking for somebody who would write on this subject. And so a week later, they call me up and they say, yeah, we like what you wrote, come in for an interview. So here I am, basically trained as a chemical engineer, rising up through my company as a former CEO, never having been trained as a writer ever, or a journalist ever. And I've just landed a spot at the Philadelphia Business Journal. One of the reasons is because I helped differentiate myself among other folks they were considering for that job because I built my brand by writing on LinkedIn. So this is something you can do too. And from that point on, I did a lot of speaking engagements on leadership, entrepreneurship, and corporate governance. Every chance I can, I still speak on it because it helps me build my knowledge base through the question and answer session we're going to go through later on. And so you want to build your brand because when you send your resume in, and by the way, you're going to get your next job through your networking, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But you want to be able to demonstrate on your resume that you're a leader, a thought leader within your area. And it's possible that the hiring manager will know who you are because maybe they've read or heard you speak. They've read what you've written or heard you speak. That gives you a leg up when you apply for another job. So let's talk about networking. You're most likely going to get your next job through your network. That's just the way it is. So you've got to build your network, and people don't spend enough time doing that. And it's one of the things that I constantly tell our professors at Drexel, that they need to train our undergraduates on how to network. And they don't do enough of it. And you can't really train. You need to kind of do it and understand how to do it and do it through practice. And so what's the major skill of networking? Well, it's your ability to walk into a room, a cocktail party, or a session at a professional event, recognize which groups of people are talking, recognize when 2 or 3 people are in intense conversation. That's not a group that you want to break into. Recognize when 2 or 3 or 4 people are casually speaking. That's a group that you can break into. Introduce yourself within 10 or 25 seconds. Tell those folks what you do and who you are. Ask them about themselves. See if there's any ground for commonality that you may be able to talk about later. And know when to extricate yourself from that group and move on to the next one. And do it comfortably. Do it comfortably. The only way you do this is really through practice. So all of us throughout our careers should be constantly networking, because you never know when you're going to call on somebody within your network to help you. You also never know when they're going to call on you and you can help them. I help a huge number of people, probably 3 or 4 people a week, making connections for them. And sometimes I'll ask them to help me. That's just how the system works. So just remember, you're going to get your next job through your network, so make sure that you help develop it every chance that you can. So my final message to you before we open it up for questions is you want to differentiate yourself. That's the only way you're going to achieve success. You want to be different than your peer in a positive way to help you get the next job. And if you prepare your resume properly, if you network, if you prepare for the interview and talk about some of the things I've described today, I can guarantee you're going to be different. Nobody else is going to talk about what I've just shared with you. And so if you want to follow me, you can buy my book. You can buy it on Barnes & Noble or Amazon. By the way, you don't have to copy this down. We're going to make this presentation available for everybody. I already gave David the slides, so he'll send them out to you or put it on the website, your website. You can go to my website, which is silvermanleadership.com, where you can read my weekly articles, which are published in the Business Journal, but also in many other publications. I have about 30 publications in other journals, other news outlets. I have 320 articles that I've written for the Business Journal, so you can search through them. It's just about every subject you may want to look for. And if you're interested in getting my weekly articles, just shoot me an email and I'll put you on my list, because every time I write an article and it's published in the Business Journal once a week, I send out an email to about 1,000 folks with that article that day. And if you want to reach out to me, my email address is there. I'll be happy to talk with you. Again, as David said, given my position in my career right now, my job is to help people be successful. That's the only reason I'm really on this earth, is to help people be successful. So with that, I'm going to conclude and welcome your comments and questions.
Well, thank you.
And dialogue.
Yeah. Thank you, Stan. So yeah, please put your questions in chat if you have any questions for Stan, and he will be answering them well right now. I kind of liked your comment about practice networking, and I started scratching my own head. And like a lot of people, I've been doing this for a while. 2 years ago, I was invited to an Oktoberfest, and it was at the German Club of Princeton. A friend of mine is the president, or was the president of the chapter. And so it was really very nice. If you like German food, it's a great place to go. It's German expats in the United States, and they've had their own community of other Germans, and it's certainly very friendly. The one challenge I had was, once I got there, everyone was nice. They were all speaking German. So hearing your example of, trying to find, the right group of people to speak with, or, just the broad concept of practice. And it was a very safe place, much like these job seeker support groups. But I would, listen to, 2 or 3, people, men or women, whatever, speaking. I had no idea what they were talking about. I don't speak German, but everyone was very nice. And I just would say good morning or good morgen if I wanted. I'm David. And now they realized I'm speaking English, and the conversation shifted to an open conversation in English. So there was a way of, being a little bit brave, but not too hard to do. But I practiced finding a way to inject myself or become part of a conversation. I'm wondering if others had an experience kind of similar to that.
Good story.
Yeah, but groups like this, a lot of professional associations where you're familiar with the marketplace, they really become easy places to practice that, because you have plenty of background information, even if you don't yet know the people. With job search, it's really a very safe place, because we're all kind of in the same boat, people looking to get a job. And if you fumble your way through, it doesn't really matter. So, and it doesn't take much time or effort just to become good at it. Okay, some nice comments, so I appreciate that. But if you've got any thoughts or questions, now is an opportunity to do so.
I have a question, David.
Okay, I mean, very good. I mean, normally through chat, but go ahead, Joey.
I didn't see any questions in the chat room, so I just thought I'd lob one out there to Stan.
Good, good.
Stan, thanks for the information. It's very helpful. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
In your experience in dealing with helping people get from where they are to where they want to be, what do you find those of us who are trying to get someplace else is getting in our way?
That's a really good question. I think not knowing the right way to go about it is one impediment that I think may stand in the way of you moving forward. The other is not being able to put together a resume and a script for your interview to talk about the right things. A lot of people talk about what they've done in the past. Well, that's nice, except your value proposition to a new employer is, what can you do for me if I hire you? And so you need to talk about the company, which means you need to do a lot of due diligence on the company before you walk in for the interview. You need to understand where they are, where they're heading, and given the internet, and it's really easy to do that kind of research. You should talk with friends and colleagues to get an idea of the culture within the company to determine whether or not you're a fit. And if you are a fit, you want to weave that into your conversation when you take your interview, when you go for your interview. So you need to do a lot of work before you take the interview, before you go in. And you know, perhaps also what I've just talked about, people are afraid to get out of their comfort zone. Hey, get out of your comfort zone and just do it. And if you do something once, you may feel that you've not done your best, but you do it the second, third time, you're going to do much better at it. And so you shouldn't be afraid of failure. You shouldn't be afraid of failing or not having things work out the right way, because as Albert Einstein once said, those who have never tried anything, or those who have never failed, never tried anything. And so you've got to just get out and do it. Steve Jobs says the same thing. He tells of a story where he picked up the phone as a 12-year-old kid and called Bill Hewitt of Hewlett Packard and asked for an electronic part because he was building something. And he was able to get Bill's number right off the directory. And he chatted with Bill Hewitt, and he was so impressed that when he became older, he got a job in a factory over the summer at a Hewlett factory. So don't be afraid to be turned down. Don't be afraid to fail. Not everything's going to work the first time, but you got to get out and keep on doing it.
Thank you.
Stan, I have a question to ask you. Alex Freund here.
Sure.
You mentioned a little earlier about the value proposition, and I know that one of the 4 components of the value proposition has to do with who your customers are. Now, if I am in transition, I want the job. I want the job, and I want the job fast. And I have the feeling that many people that I know, they're willing to sell what they have to sell to anyone. And my point is, you need to be very narrow. You need to be very, very selective to identify who your customers are, customers in this case, potential future employers. I wonder if you can address briefly about how to go and find out who are those employers that may want what I want to sell.
Well, you have to determine number one, what business you're in, where your skills are, where your technical skills and where your experiences are. And you know, if you come from the chemical industry, you're probably not going to get hired by an accounting firm unless you're an accountant. And so you have to make sure the fit is correct. And you don't want to waste your time, and you don't want to waste the employer's time. You know, one of the worst things you can do is send out 1,000 resumes to 1,000 different people and expect a response. You're not going to get any response at all. And so your search has to be very targeted. And that's why I say most of the time, your next job is going to be found through your network. People that know you, people that know other people that know of companies that may be searching for somebody like yourself. And you should always ask the individual when you're networking, never ask for a job, ask for advice on how to search for a job. They know why you're there. And so they may put you in touch with somebody who will put you in touch with somebody else. And you eventually may find a person whose company is, hey, we're looking for exactly what that skill is for what that lady or gentleman has. Let's bring him in for an interview. And so your job, your full-time job when you're looking for a job is to look for a job that's full-time. And network all the time. And it works. I mean, it eventually it will work if you put the time into it. Good question.
We have a question in the chat. It's from Dara. What is the best way to reach out to working people to start a relationship or to network with them? What is the ideal way to follow up with them so that one day they might be able to help you?
Well, you need to get out as much as you can. When I left when we sold the company, I stepped down as CEO. For the first year, I probably went to 20 or 25 trade association meetings, mostly in New York and in Washington. And so almost every week, I was out going to these meetings, introducing myself determining whether or not I would meet a person that could help me or I could help them. Not going to a meeting handing out 12 or 15 business cards, but if I could establish 1 or 2 or 3 really good connections, and that's why I say you need to, when you break into a group and you introduce yourself, see if there's there's grounds for a commonality, and just get out there. And all of a sudden, I start getting phone calls. It didn't happen immediately, but I joined 3 boards based upon contacts that I had made months before. People remembered what my expertise was, that I was a former CEO of a chemical company, and they said, we know somebody that's looking for a board member. Do you want to give them a call? And so I landed a couple of positions as a board member. I was asked to interview for a CEO job 3 times, and I decided that I wasn't going to. I already, it's done that, been there, done that, and I didn't want another CEO job. I wanted to be a board member, and I eventually served. I think I've served on a total of 14 boards. I'm now still on 6. I rotated off the other one. So I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. I'm not looking for more board seats now. Been there, done that. What I want to do now is what I'm doing right here with you today. I want to continue to write articles, and I want to continue to be a thought leader in the area of leadership, entrepreneurship, and corporate governance. I coach and counsel a lot of entrepreneurs at Drexel University at the Close School of Entrepreneurship at Drexel. I help them be successful. They reach out to me. So I'm doing exactly what I want to do at this point in my career, but I've taken, I think, the right steps to get me there. Hope I answered the question for you.
Thank you. We'll see if Dara has another comment. Certainly you could put that in. Let's see. And so Dara does have a follow-up. What about the COVID-19 environment?
Well, we're kind of in an interesting environment, aren't we? So Dara, what do you mean by what about the COVID-19 environment? Are you asking how do you network given the environment we're in, where everybody's meeting online and not in person? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, in terms of if networking is the way to go to find a job, and a lot of us, there's a lot of meetings.
I'm sorry, I lost you. Hello?
You broke up, Dara.
Well, I can answer. I think I can answer the question. And so it's very difficult, obviously, because you're not meeting people in person. But there's still a lot of events online, and you should attend those events. And as far as ensuring that you don't lose the context you've had, and I do this all the time. If I haven't talked or seen somebody in a month or 2, I'll drop them a note or I'll send them a text message and I'll say, how are you doing? What's going on? What are you doing? How's your company doing? And that way I maintain my relationships so you don't lose them, because it's so hard to build them up. You don't want to lose them. And so you do the best you can. And, as soon as the vaccine is here, the COVID environment will change and we'll be back to meeting in person again.
Okay, Mike has a question. It seems that your branding is very important to distinguish yourself. Your comments.
Branding is very important. You're more apt to get a job if you're a recognized opinion leader or influencer in your area of expertise. And so the way you do that is you have to write. And the internet makes it easy. Not only can you write on LinkedIn, but you can send out blogs. You don't have to be on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is really not a great place to write things, but it's a place where you can introduce people to your blog elsewhere. So start a web page, start up a web page, start a blog, write on things. I'm very fortunate in that not only do I have a website where I write a lot, but I get published across the country. So I'm very, very fortunate to be able to do that. And it's helped me certainly build my brand, my personal brand. But you can do it without being nationally syndicated. Just write, give your opinion on things, send your friends and contacts what you write, ask them for their opinion. And slowly but surely, you're going to build your brand. You will build your brand.
Yeah, Stan, you and I had this conversation the other day. Don't worry about if you can sell your comments or your post, if you can monetize it, building your brand is using your publications, your articles, your posts to really bolster just who you are. The way you get paid is you'll get the job, or you'll land the contract, or anything else that is truly what your brand is about. This is supporting documentation. It's not too hard to do.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, David. In fact, what we talked about was my own experience, where all of my writing really led, and my speaking engagements really led to the sale of my book. And so, had I not done everything in the years before leading to the publication of my book would have not been a success, and I probably wouldn't even written it. And so, you're building everything you do. You build for the future. You build for the future, even if you're not being compensated. You're building for the future. You're building for the future.
Yeah, certainly when you hear about people that you don't know, if you hear that they're an author, or if you hear that they're a teacher, by default, you consider them an expert. So by you being the author or the writer of an article or a blog post, or if you're going to teach a training class or a seminar, you will get added perception points for being an expert. So really, it's very valuable. And talk about the things you know. You don't have to discover anything. Just talk about what you already know to develop your brand.
And people will be very interested in what you know, because it's going to help them. And so you're doing it not to help yourself. Again, you're doing it to help other people. And by helping other people, you're helping yourself.
Sure.
You never want to be focused on yourself. You want to be focused on others.
Absolutely.
And that'll help you be successful. And I just like to make a comment that we also talked about, but yet hasn't been brought up here. And so when I was CEO of my company, as we were moving earnings from 14 million to 43, our employees were starting to say, "Boy, aren't we a great company? Aren't we a great company?" And I would immediately correct them and say, "Well, it's not up for us to say that we're a great company. It's up for third parties to say we're a great company." And our answer to them is, "No, we're not a great company. We're really good here. We're very good here. We're mediocre here, but we're trying to improve. And we're on a journey to be great. We are on a journey. You're never great. You're on a journey to be great, because once your employees think you're great, there's no place to go, and your competition will eat you alive. They really will, because they're trying to be great, right? And so you're always on a journey to be great. It's a place you'll never get to, and that way you'll stay in front of everybody, and you'll be, you'll do great for your customers and for your employees and for the marketplace by being always on a journey to be great."
Yeah, terrific. So got a few minutes. Anybody else have a question? You can put that in chat, or politely unmic yourself. That seems to be working so far. If not, we'll move on. But anyone else have the opportunity? We've got Stan has some time still to offer us.
I have as much time as you want to speak. No problem with me.
I got another question, David.
Oh, there's Joey. Okay, good.
Sorry, I can't keep quiet. Stan, with this audience here of mostly people that are looking for work, what's the question or questions we're not asking you that you're surprised we're holding back?
That's a really good question. I think, how do I start? How do I start? Now, we really talked about that through the presentation and indirectly through the questions, but and also what to do. In fact, this is really an important question. I always say that you're looking for your next job as you're in your current job. You're always looking for your next job as you're working your current job, because eventually you're going to have to look for another job unless you retire. And so what are some of the things that you should do in your current job? One is you want to build a lot of contacts, network, but you also want to build an informal network within your company. Companies really run on the informal network as much as the formal network. And when you leave your company, regardless of whether you get terminated or you leave on your own volition, you never, ever, ever want to burn bridges, ever. You want to leave on great terms, even if you get terminated, because your former boss and the HR department of your former company are in a position to help you. They're in a position to help you. So I know a lot of people that basically burned bridges when they left, right? They never got reemployed. They never got reemployed because people check around, right? You can, an employer is going to check on you. They're going to do due diligence on you before they hire you. They're going to ask for references, and of course, the references you give are going to be great references. And so they're going to check those because they need to check the box. But they're also going to call around their friends in the industry, and they're going to find out about you. What kind of worker were you? Were you collaborative? Were you a tyrant? Were you a toxic individual in your current job? Don't be a toxic individual in your current job. I used to work for a toxic individual. He nearly destroyed the division in which I was in. And I eventually got promoted to be his peer. 3 years later, I got promoted to be his boss, and I fired him. You never want to work for a toxic boss, and you never want to be toxic yourself. And if you work for a toxic boss, you got to find out a way to deal with the individual. I found a way to deal with my toxic boss. One day I was in his office. We were discussing some arcane issue I can't remember, and he was screaming and yelling at me. And very calmly, I said, Dick, I'm about to leave your office. When you've calmed down, you call me back up, and I'll come back up and see it, where you can visit me in my office downstairs. But where this conversation is ending. He was absolutely blown away. He says, you can't leave. I said, I'm leaving, and I walked out. 6 minutes later, exactly, he was in my office, very calm, and we solved the problem in like 5 minutes, right? And so the question you should ask me is, were you afraid to get fired when you were insubordinate to your boss? And I would say no. Why? Because I built political capital within the company. So all of you, when you get your next job, you need to build political capital within your company. Will protect you from a tyrant who wants to go off and just kind of fire you if they don't like what you have to say. So you always want to build political capital. Also, political capital will help you get the next job. And so you just want to do certain things in your job. I probably didn't answer your question. I was off the mark a little bit, but I would suspect that one of you would have asked me, once I get a job, what should I do to ensure I can get even the next job after that one? And that's the answer.
Well, I would suggest that even if you don't answer the question, just hearing your comments and your experience is helpful. It's certainly helpful hearing about your experiences. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, let me give you a little bit of on top of that, right? So while I was working for this tyrant, one of the junior people in HR comes up to me. Bill comes up to me and he says, your destiny is to fire Dick. I said, how can I fire him? I work for him. He says it, and he says it without smiling, walks away, right? So 4 years later, after I fired Dick, Bill comes back up to me. He says, remember we had a conversation about 4 years ago and I said it was your destiny to fire Dick? I said, oh my God, I remember that. Bill, you're like a prophet. This is like biblical. And so we had a good time with that. But that actually happened. It actually happened. And, it's one of my cherished memories, actually. I also when I serve on boards, I want to serve on the audit committee because that's where today's hotline reports go in. And I'm there to listen for a hotline report where an employee reports their tyrant boss or their toxic boss. I want to know what the CEO is going to do about it because I lived through this, and no employee should ever have to suffer under a toxic or a tyrant boss.
Thank you.
That's what I do now.
Stan, to help a little bit with Joy's comments, how about if you talk about the future of workplace from your point of view?
Well, I think things have changed a lot over the last 6 months, right? So I used to get on an airplane and fly to Los Angeles for a 4-hour meeting and get on the red eye and fly home and be tired the next day at work, half asleep. Or I've even flown to Europe, had dinner, and the next day flown back, spent a ton of money doing it, wasted 3 days or 2 days. And today, if I know the people, if people know people, they're going to have meetings just like this. And so the airline industry is going to be completely restructured. The rental car business is going to be completely restructured. There's going to be a lot less travel and a lot less online meetings. I think it's easy to do when you know people. When you don't know people, you really have to get in front of them and you have to kind of get the body language, get to know them. So I think the future of work is going to be a lot more at home, portionally, some of it at home, some of it in the office. I think you don't want to be in the commercial real estate business right now, because I don't think the demand for office space is going to be like it was. And so we're going to see changes, which I think are going to be permanent, or perhaps not permanent, but certainly change. There's going to be a lot more changes coming forward. So the biggest change is how you meet people and how you discuss things with people. It's not going to be like it was. It's not going to be like it was. People are going to save a ton of money. Companies are going to save a ton of money on travel and time too. Time.
Yeah, I think that's certainly.
What do you think? What's your view? What do you think?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Well, I happened to be in your shoes last night because I was a speaker to another group. And we talked about the future of employment and jobs and so forth. And my personal prediction, and by the way, I'm not genius, I'm just reading and so forth. Here's my prediction. Real estate in some location for office space is enormously, unbelievably expensive, unreasonably expensive. And I know it because many years ago, as a director of facilities, I happened to be the one sending the monthly check to the owner. So I think companies, because their number one mission is to help the share owner, they will do whatever it takes to reduce the expenses. They will be so happy to eliminate 80% of the office space, because that's a very big bucks to the bottom line. So what does that mean now? That means now more people will work from home, and here is a big end. Companies will have options not to hire locally. You don't commute to work. Right. You hire somebody from Milan, Italy, another one from Pune, India, from Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and Manhattan. And they all work in team. This is what's going to be the future. So if you accept my tenet that what does this mean to the job seeker? The answer, way more competition.
Well, that's a great point, and thank you for bringing that up. And in fact, it reminds me of something I want to share with you. So my older son works for Cigna Insurance. He's been with them for 12 years. His entire division is virtual. His entire division is virtual. They don't sit in offices, they sit at home. And because of that, they're able to hire the very, very best talent from around the country without upsetting the families, where the other spouse could have a job, so they don't have to move, they don't have to pull their kids out of school, they don't have to sell their house. And it's very easy to do. And I used to say to Rob, my son, when he started, I said, well, how is it working online all the time? You're working at home. He says, I love it. He said, first of all, we've talked about this. The company ensures that he has the very best and latest communication technology, computers, microphones, everything, right? The whole bit. Multiple computer screens. About 4 times a year, they all meet together for meetings. So he knows people, they get together for business meetings, they travel. But day in and day out, they're at home, working from home, similar to the way we're doing it now. And he said, I take maybe a 2-hour commuting time saved, which I spend at work. He says, I don't mind doing that. And so people are much more productive because they're not spending time in automobiles waiting in traffic. They're spending money parking their car, getting on the train. So thank you very much for raising that point. It's an extremely important point and valuable point. Things are changing. And so when everybody went online last March, Rob said to me, well, we've been doing this for years and years and years. No change for us. And there was no change for him, obviously.
I have a question as it relates to all of this remote Zooming and all of the comments that have been made about staying home and not going into the office. Does anybody have a sense of what the social impact on people will be in the future operating this way? It seems to me humans are social creatures, and we're socially distancing ourselves from each other. And I don't mean, 2 months from now. If this continues for the next, I don't know, 5 years or whatever it happens to be, what will be the social impact, for lack of a better term right now?
Who has a view on that?
I can
Anyway.
speak for one thing. I have a coworker. I'm currently working, but I'm still keeping options open. But I've got a coworker who, when I've had conversations through the work Skype, he gets chatty about kids, about family stuff. It's the lack of human interaction, and he's trying to supplement it with that.
When I was working, I found it beneficial to, well, I'm not going to say have the 3 martini lunch, but to interact with people one-on-one, or 3 people around a table at a restaurant, et cetera, and there's relationships, as I recall, that got built up, that when you needed a tough thing to be done, those relationships helped. And here, we're all politely speaking with each other, but it's all distance. It's all you over there and me over here kind of thing. I'm curious to see what it's going to be like. Like I said, not 6 months from now, but 5 years from now. I think there's going to be a lot lost myself, and not having some contact, not necessarily day to day, but face to face. I find it a little, frankly, a little disturbing.
I think the challenge that we're going to have is being able to have multiple conversations in a room of people. Like right now in a Zoom call, it's almost impossible for 4 people to have a conversation over each other. In fact, it's probably impossible. But yet in a restaurant, 10 people can be sitting around a table, and there could be 5 different conversations going on at the same time. So I think we're missing that. And I think that is important, to Pat's point. We're just going to have to muddle through. We're going to have to muddle through. We can't, we got to remain, we're social animals. We got to remain in touch with each other. We got to remain, if this is the best thing that we have, then we got to make the best of what we have. Because to not communicate with each other is just going to be our downfall.
I think smart companies, smart managers are going to be asking themselves the very same question. And in terms of GoToMeeting, I don't know if this is the best tool right now, but when you look at Zoom has breakout rooms.
Right.
And I've been in meetings where they've had the whole session, let's say all like 60 people, but then they break out into topics in breakout rooms. So it does have to be a little planned, rather than just 10 people sitting at a table and every 2 or 3 people talking to each other.
Right.
But just like, we were thrown into this. We've said for a long time, people would say, oh, can I work from home? And the company said no. Well, now companies see a lot of people can work from home, and they're going to have to figure this out too. So we don't have the short answer right now. My observation is problems put in front of us, the tech companies salivate and come up with a solution, and then other people follow along. So maybe, I don't know if the 5-year time frame, Pat, is right, but some point beyond today, certainly it's going to be a little bit different for a lot of companies.
I'd be curious to see if we could, we being the networking groups in general, could get a psychologist, sociologist, psychiatrist to give a presentation on what their perception is, given this environment and given the time frame of 5 years or 2 years or whatever they would discuss.
That's a great idea, Pat.
Earlier this year, I was on a virtual Seder, and they did use the breakout rooms for, I'll say, 5 families at a time to just talk like you were at a regular table in a large room. And they did that a couple of times. That was.
I think I would have liked to do that at a lot of my Thanksgivings, because some of the discussions would get pretty heated. I'd like to put some of my family members in a breakout room.
And forget they're there.
Are there rubber breakout rooms too?
Yeah,
I think 2021 is going to be a very, very interesting year. Alex has indicated this in his presentation last night, and I think Stan today has also indicated it. People are going to be starting to make decisions on how to process their employees, how they can satisfy their customers. And it sounds to me the bottom line is at the end of the first quarter or the second quarter to be able to look at their annual reports and get a better idea of what have their costs been reduced, have their revenues increased, and they're going to make some major decisions. And in doing that, I believe there will be some changes. What they are, I don't know. However, that makes it difficult for us because in our planning and looking for a job, we have to anticipate that and be progressive in terms of letting the new or the former or the employer know that we can handle this type of environment. It comes down to being flexible as well. You have to be very, very flexible in what you're doing now and also in the future.
I agree with that. It's going to be a hybrid in the future. I don't think it's going to be all the same as what it is today. You know, eventually we're going to get back to a semblance of normalcy. So I think you need to have the skills to be able to do this remotely because that's not going away anytime soon. But I think there's going to be a combination of in-person as well as doing things virtually. So it's not an all or nothing the way it pretty much is now.
I think one thing for sure is that we're going to not
look. Things are going to change. We all know it. Okay, it will evolve. I mean, when it comes to breakout rooms, as David says, we've been doing breakout rooms at Careers in Transition since we went on to Zoom when COVID first started. And we use that, for resume review and for things on LinkedIn, and we have a general meeting. But also, as been mentioned, the breakout rooms you could have from a social standpoint also to try to be together to come what Pat was saying, which I totally agree with Pat. The human relationship, the cooler talk, if you want to call that, is missing in today's environment. But look, things will evolve. Things will change. We know it. I think we'll have a further issue with the different generations because the older generation, a number of people cannot adapt to the new technology that we have today. And I think that gap may widen as we get more sophisticated. But at the same time, as Alex says, companies now could look to people in different locations that may not be where they generally work. But that also brings into account the question from a tax standpoint for different corporations and for the individuals. So for instance, if your company, let's say, is in New York and you're working for that company, you are an employee, but let's say, for instance, you work down in Florida where they don't necessarily have that type of payroll tax. Well, the government now is looking and say, wait a second, this person is an employee of New York, okay, and should be then taxed in the New York payroll tax laws. So there's a lot of issues that still have not been resolved, and yes, it's going to take a while to do it. It will change business dramatically, as we see today, as Stan mentioned, in the real estate sector. From a commercial real estate sector, they are adjusting quite rapidly to feel that, the properties that they have, the vacancy rates are increasing. The space that they have is also increasing. And so at the same time, other companies are trying to negotiate for lower rentals, lower cost of rentals. At the same time, if you take then the consumer real estate market, that is booming now in the suburbs because people now feel they don't want to be in the cities. They're moving out into the suburbs because they could work remotely. We are currently in a dramatic change, the effects that we will not know for several years. But bear in mind, it will change. Society will change as a result of this virus right now.
I want to share with you something that I think you will find interesting. 2 weeks ago, I received a phone call from a lady that used to work for me about 20 years ago. She is now the director of facilities for a major company in the metropolitan New York area. So she's sharing with me that the CEO decided that people will work from home if they wish so. What is the implication? My colleague says the whole day she's working on shipping furniture, external monitors, filing cabinets to people's home, including the installer. And this is what she's doing, buying furniture, sending it home, and all this. And she said, Alex, you would not believe this. One of our employees called OSHA on us because in the office, we used to have ergonomic furniture. At home, she doesn't have. So she called OSHA because now she has a back pain. So this is the outcome that we may see down the road. What are the demands of employees from the employer that says you may work from home?
So one thing I just want to ask folks, or let folks know, let's hold on to this discussion just for a few minutes. Let me formally just wrap up the meeting because we've had wonderful topics that have gone beyond just the core of what Stan was presenting about differentiating ourselves. And then let me just wrap up the meeting and we'll keep the session open for a little while longer and keep these terrific discussions going on about disruptions in the workplace. But Stan, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. I think so many of the points that you raised are extremely relevant. And also, you have the perspective different than some of our presenters. You led workplaces, and so you know what was important to people in that way. So yeah, you certainly do need to differentiate yourself to stand out from the competition. And hiring is a hard process. And when hiring managers have 2 or 3 people that are exactly the same, they want you to make it easy for them. So if you can differentiate and stand out from the competition, it'll be very easy for them to pick you. And I liked your point about power skills, how it really can power skills can really differentiate you from the other candidates. So all very wonderful points that you brought up.
David, let me thank you again for inviting me to join the group this morning, and let me thank everyone who attended today for your attention and for your great questions and dialogue. I appreciate it, and as I said earlier, David will make my presentation available to you on your site. And if you want to contact me or follow me on the last page of my slide deck, there's ways to do that. So I wish everybody luck in your future endeavors. And again, thank you for having me this morning.
Great, thank you, Stan. And actually, Stan, your slide deck is available right now. I already put that on the website already. All you need to do is go to our website, psg.mercercounty.org, and on the right side, there's a sidebar, right sidebar, and right in the middle of that is a link, meeting presentation documents. This is a meeting. Stan gave us his presentation document. So just click on that. The very top meeting presentation document on that page is Stan's slide deck. A little later, I'll put the chat that we had. I'll put that in there as well, and a link to the video. Of course, you can always go to the link in that same right sidebar. There's a logo for YouTube, and that goes to our group's YouTube channel. So lots of ways to catch up on this. Wanted to let you know there's actually one landing that was reported. Some of you know one of our members. He goes to a lot of the local groups. His name is Mark Schwartz. He's an IT director and operations manager, and he landed a position and started yesterday as a director of operations at a real estate investment management company. So congratulations to Mark. So Mark is not here today because he's started his job yesterday. And what we have coming up over the next couple of weeks, next week I will be your presenter and your host. I'll be wearing all the hats next week. We're going to be talking about uncover the hidden job market. So a number of sources have reported up to 70% of open jobs are not even posted, and we'll talk about ways to find some of those to make you more make some of those more available to you. So that's October 9th, Uncover the Hidden Job Market. October 16th, Ken Scher will be here. Ken's been here before. Overcoming age discrimination. A lot of people in the 45 plus group get a little concerned about age discrimination. Is it real? Yes, and there are ways to overcome it. And so it will be nice to get his perspective on that as well. There's certainly other groups in the area that continue to support us and keep us informed. Next Saturday, October 10th, at the Breakfast Club of New Jersey. Now, 8 o'clock in the morning at the Breakfast Club of New Jersey. IT recruiter Janelle Rosino will be talking about the salary question. So many people have questions about how to negotiate salary, when to negotiate salary, how much should I post, what should I ask, all that kind of stuff. So Janelle will be talking about that. You can go to their website, thebreakfastclubnj.com, thebreakfastclubnj.com, and get information for connecting to that free meeting next Saturday at 8 o'clock in the morning. Also, some of our cousin organizations, PSG of Central New Jersey, they will be talking on this Monday about how to find contacts in your target companies. So you'll want to go to their website, psgcnj.biz. They meet Monday at 10:30 with their virtual meeting. And also PSG of Morris County. They meet every Wednesday at 9:30 in the morning. Go to their website, psgmc.org, to get their connection information as well. And then, of course, the oldest continuously running job seeker support group is New Jersey Job Seekers. They meet Tuesday evening at 7:30 in the evening. What's nice about that group is it's not presentation oriented, it's only discussion oriented. So if you really like these sorts of discussions, show up to the meeting and talk about whatever you want to talk about. If you've got an interview coming up and you're concerned about it, or other things related to your career, maybe something going on that week, that's what you'll talk about. I will get the contact information from them shortly and post it in the PSG LinkedIn group. So that's all the information that I have for all of us. I will be keeping this session open for a little while longer so we can continue our terrific discussion on disruptions and other things that we were talking about a moment ago. But until that moment, everybody have a good week. Hope to see you all very soon, at least virtually, hopefully next week or at one of the other groups. So bye, everybody.